A cultura é um dos mais preciosos instrumentos de democracia. É um canal de expressão plural que permite a convivência de diferentes vozes, histórias e visões de mundo. E por isso a cultura, tal qual a democracia, deve ser defendida e fortalecida. Essa é a função da Lei Rouanet, a principal política pública de incentivo à cultura brasileira. Com ela, perseguimos a missão de assegurar o acesso democrático à produção e à difusão cultural. Ao longo de mais de 3 décadas, a Rouanet permitiu que inúmeras iniciativas culturais, antes inviáveis, ganhassem o mundo. Revelou histórias, preservou tradições e transformou vidas. Lei Rouanet, há 33 anos, tornando a cultura brasileira mais plural, acessível e democrática.
Casal de dançarinos se olham sorridentes. Uma banda orquestrada para de tocar. Logos: Lei Rouanet, Ministério da Cultura, Governo Federal, Brasil, União e Reconstrução.
Onde tem cultura, a Vale está. No poder criativo que nasce dos palcos, orquestras, das artes, das ruas e dos museus. Na valorização das diversas identidades brasileiras e na preservação de memórias. É valorizando a cultura que crescemos e evoluímos juntos. Instituto Cultural Vale.
Essa casa de farinha que a gente tinha ali, o pessoal plantava aqui e fazia farinha lá na vila. Então, só uns 30 anos atrás fizeram essa casa de farinha, mais ou menos 1 ano e meio caiu essa casa. Tá plantando, tem que ter casa de farinha. E aí, tipo, a gente resolveu refazer a casa de farinha, né, para fazer a nossa própria farinha. A gente tá construindo uma casa tradicional mesmo. Então a gente não tá comprando madeira em lugar nenhum. Tudo madeira do mato. Então ali tem jacatirão, tem uma cajarana que caiu, que a gente aproveitou para fazer os esteios, uma canela, quando o louro caiu, caiu em cima da canela, a gente aproveitou a canela também. E é tudo madeira aí do mato. Quem vive tradicionalmente hoje está preservando a natureza, está preservando o planeta. Quando se tem uma casa de farinha aqui, né, a minha família vem fazer farinha, as outras famílias também vêm. Sabe? É um espaço que você reúne. E eu acho que é uma forma também de você fazer frente a essa destruição que está aí, né? E quando você faz isso aqui, você não, tem possibilidade, tem você plantar em contato com a natureza. Então isso aqui é uma maneira de luta também.
Ministério da Cultura e a Associação Casa Azul apresentam 23ª FLIP, Festa Literária Internacional de Paraty. A FLIP conta com o benefício da Lei Federal de Incentivo à Cultura, Lei Rouanet, PRONAC 235060, e possui acessibilidade para pessoas com deficiências física, visual e auditiva. Tem patrocínio Jequitibá do Nubank. Patrocínio Figueira da Vale. Patrocínio Guapuruvu do Itaú e da Motiva, por meio do seu instituto. Patrocínio Cedro do Sesc, da MAC Móveis e de O Globo. Patrocínio Araribá, da Globo Livros. Apoio institucional da Prefeitura de Paraty, Governo do Estado do Rio de Janeiro, IFAM, Instituto do Patrimônio Histórico e Artístico Nacional e Museu do Território, É uma criação e realização Associação Casa Azul e Ministério da Cultura, Governo Federal, Brasil, União e Reconstrução. Flip, o encontro da literatura com a cidade.
Good morning, Paraty. Yesterday, a very special thing happened. I guess yesterday the program was, I've been talking to people around Paraty. Everything was very moving. It was beautiful to watch. That was for Friday. And then I went to bed super happy. I wasn't able to sleep at all, actually, because everything was, turning in my mind and my heart beating really fast. And I almost called Mauro and Claudia for us to make an extension of Flip. I'm kidding. You won't have to work more. But I had this, quiet down your dear heart. And then I remember a poem by Leminski saying, quiet down your heart. It's still not now. The confusion proceeds. Keep calm. We will come later. And closer to the bone, the meat is tastier. We're getting closer to the bone, and the meat is going to be tastier. It's going to be a beautiful Saturday for all of us. So, you can send in your questions in writing, and Nei Lopes will sign his books at the bookstore. This program will certainly brings me great joy because it is one of the main interpreters of Brazil, an amazing writer, an amazing samba writer. And if in Brazil we're always, in awe, the existence of artists such as Nei Lopes is what makes our heart stand still and quiet down. There's this verse where he says, my samba is the only thing I can give you. This samba about Irajá. No, but it's a lie, because he can give a lot more than samba, or everything is samba. To mediate this roundtable, I would like to invite Luiz Antonio Simas, who last year did beautifully in one of the most beautiful openings for when we pay tribute to João do Rio. And Simas has a mission of teaching us every day what Brazil is. And I'm sure that a great part of what he teaches, he learned with Nei Lopes. Simas, you have the floor. I sit here.
Bom dia.
Good morning. So it is such a joy to be here again, another year with you at Felipe. Well, I'm going to say something that is absolutely from the heart about my guests. Of course, I will have to thank the curators, thank Ana Cecílio for the invitation. It was such a pleasure to open Flip last year talking about João do Rio. But I say this without any problem here. Today, I am more moved than I was when I opened the Flip Festival last year. I am more moved because today I will have the pleasure of mediating this roundtable with my dear professor, my master, my friend, my partner, both my intellectual partner and a powerful interpreter of Brazil, a bigger samba writer. He's also a producer of a literary work, more than 50 books published, and he's now launching another book. So now we're going to sit and have a very nice conversation. So let us welcome our dear master, Nei Lopes.
Vamos lá. Senta aí. Tu é aqui. Seu microfone.
Your microphone? Good morning. It's such a pleasure to be here, such a pleasure to be here, to welcome you and to be mediated by this amazing person, a very unique character of our culture. I've seen better days. Well, one day you're going to be 83 and you'll see what's good for you. So it is a pleasure to be here with you. I would like to thank you immensely. I would like to thank our publishing house and all our staff, those supporters. I would like to thank Brazil, actually, at the end of the day. Brazil one day will work. So let us start our conversation. I was saying that here I am a mediator here, and as a mediator, I normally compare a mediator with two amazing characters. The first is the owner of a cambono, of a terreno. He's the one that will be like the supporter. He will help, he will allow things to happen and bring you some work. And the mediator is a type of a mediator, and he's also a judge in the soccer team. Because if he doesn't show up, it's because his work is good. So Nei, of course, is our highlight. And I would like to first ask Nei so that we can have this conversation. I believe we are in a festival, a literary festival, and he has an amazing literary production. And these are more than 700 sambas that he has written. Not only samba, other styles. He's a very versatile producer. But not only that, more than 52 books that are published since 1981. Amazing. Samba na realidade, and he also goes through all the different styles you can imagine. Fiction, short story, novels, poetry, chronicles, essays. He is also a contributor in dictionaries. So everything you can imagine in literature, Nei does, and with good quality. So I would like to start by talking about this Nei, the man of thought, the man that works with books. So first question for us to kick off. How did you start getting in touch with books, first as a reader and then as a writer? What will make you at a given moment to see that it's not a transition? I've heard I was reading a couple of things about it. It's not a transition between a samba writer and a writer. You were always a samba writer, and you're also a man of words. How does a book go into your life? The reader, Nei Lopes, from Irajá in the outskirts of Rio de Janeiro. And how would you, this reader, Nei Lopes, become the instructor and the writer, Nei Lopes? Take it away. I am from a family that, and I'm very proud of being part of this family. My father and my mother both are very experienced in life. When I was born, I was the last born. I'm the youngest, so I was the last drop of the bucket. And I am, in this moment, writing an autobiography. And, some friends are supporting me and asking me to do this, many editors too. And I'm doing this. And I have the possibility of, revisiting my story in this past that really moves me. We were 13 siblings. My father was born before the abolition, and my mother was born in the turn of the century. So you can imagine the experience of this family with this constitution and all difficulties imaginable. And I was able to be the youngest who was able to go beyond, thanks to the collaboration of those who came before. Unfortunately, my brothers are no longer with me physically, because spiritually they're all talking to me always. And one of these brothers, none of us was able to go beyond the first step of education, which was the first 5 years, the junior. The first one to overcome this, so to speak, barrier was me, with the support of my family. And none of my brothers was able to go beyond that. And I was able to go to the university, of course, with the support of all my brothers. And among my brothers, a very common thing in my family, everybody, we loved music. We had lots of art in our DNA. And even, unconsciously, we loved art. So this dive in of my past and writing my biography, with the help of two historians, friends of mine, who have a greater knowledge and are able to verify our archives in the past of my family. And they revealed the other day who my grandfather was. He was an artist also. An artist, he painted. So no one in the family knew that. This was the 19th century. And one of my brothers worked in a printing house. He was a professional. He would print books. And when he saw that I wanted to have a book as a tool, everything that was, every possibility he had to give me a book, he would give me a book. He would give me a book. And I maybe, when I was 10 or 11, my brother, without even noticing, gave me a book about soccer. There were some drawings, some illustrations, and it was in English even. And he gave this book for me to read. And so I didn't learn soccer. I never was a good soccer player. But I learned a little bit about English because of the book that this brother gave me. And this happens, repeatedly. When I was already in college, it was the National University of Law of Brazil. I would like to highlight this. This was a National Public Law College. And my brother gave me a collection of books. It was a study, a legal study of one of the main jurists in Brazil. I can't remember the name now, but I will remember. So it was a series. So just for you to understand how things work, this book came into my life, as I said, maybe when I was 10 years old, through a book in English, a book I carried around my whole life, almost all my life. I carried this book around. And because of this incentive, and said maybe in the mind of each of my brothers, they always had this, I wasn't able to go to college, but I want him to go. So this is how it happened, and I don't exaggerate here. The whole family together to support me, and we love to party too. There are many musicians in our family, are amateur. They're not professional musicians. So my household was filled with music, and of course lots of parties. If you lived with me at the time, you would have a nice beer and maybe eat some stew. It was, we had the famous the stew festival in my family. My older brother, who was closer to me in terms of age, one up, let's say, and they created, along with a friend of mine from college, they created a party that was a very important event. It was the Stew Festival, Festival do Ensopado. Each woman from my household, my sisters, all the women would cook, and we would have the Stew Festival. I was now married for the second time, and I told Sonia, who unfortunately left us at the end of last year. Oh, I miss her so much. But such is life. So my dear Sonia decided to participate in the Stew Festival, and she asked me, what should I cook? And she said, do a stew, make a stew. And I sort of explained how my mother used to make the stew. My mother had already passed a long time ago. So the party started. Sonia came in with her little pot, and she goes to cook it, to heat it, and then let's taste it. There was even a jury now. Do you remember Carlão Elegante? Yes, Carlão, yes. The last big presenter of the Stew Festival. So I tried to tell her how my mother used to make the stew, and she won. And when she won, my niece, so my family was very close to Kardasism, and so my niece said, no, that's unfair. It's plagiarism. It's plagiarism. And it was a full plagiarism of my mom's stew. So she was unqualified, disqualified. But Nei, and it's interesting what you're saying, because it shows that the culture of samba goes beyond, musicality. It's the way you eat, the way you drink, the way you dress, you play, you party, you pray. Everything is part of samba. Samba is a culture. It is a very complete thing. Unfortunately, society, capitalism, consumption society, has been taking away from me what the samba was in the 60s, to me, to my family. The 60s was, to me, the best time, the best moment when I lived samba the way I liked to live samba. And I wish that everyone would have that opportunity, even participating in a samba school. Acadêmicos do Salgueiro. Now, a round of applause for Acadêmicos do Salgueiro, a samba school from Rio de Janeiro. And it absolutely changed Carnival in Brazil. And I participated in this revolution. My first time was in 1963 in Acadêmicos do Salgueiro. The school was just starting, the samba school was just starting. It was celebrating 10 years. And a carnival that absolutely made a difference for every carnival since. It was the Chica da Silva a theme, even though it wasn't even though I wasn't beautiful, I participated in that carnival. Nei, tell me this. There's Salgueiro, there's samba, there's you leave you behind law, maybe around 72, something like that. You decide not to follow the profession, but law still followed you around. There's always, you always use legal slang in your samba lyrics. Yes, we talk about vara de família, but what I wanted to say is that in 1981, you started your trajectory as a writer, and with a book in which you would question the path of samba, the true samba. And then you start with a non-fiction, and then you have a Manto Malays, Black Identity, everything else. And so my question is, where does the writer come in? You talked about the writer, Nei Lopes, the importance of your family, Brazilian families, and people don't study as much as they should. For those who came after that should study, how is this? How does the book, come into your life? Was there an invitation, and then all your writer's flow starts? How did this start? It was a gift. It was a gift. We are the only ones that actually know how things happen. There are a group of people from Bahia whose inspiration and the connection with our roots, religious roots, was commanded by a great master who also became a friend, Master Didi, from Afé Aponjá, from Bahia. Joana Albain dos Santos, who's still among us. I haven't seen her for a long time. She's in Bahia. And this group came through Muniz Sodré, my dear friend and master. He wanted to come and understand the whole idea of blackness in Rio de Janeiro, a moment that we also created a great leader, Grêmio Recreativo of Black Art and Samba School. It was not just a quilombo, it was not a samba school, it was a cultural area for blacks, and it was also a quilombo, a maroon community in a free translation. So I was involved in this main discussion, and through this I already had maybe, I was maybe 8 or 9, 10, and my participation in Salgueiro. So I started to perceive that what was happening at that time. And I decided to stop for a while at Acadêmicos do Salgueiro. I stopped my work at Acadêmicos do Salgueiro because I decided to discuss things that had to do with what the Maroon community, the Quilombo, was discussing, the matters that were important to them. And this group from Bahia, Master Didi, they had a strong connection with another publishing house.
Foi a Codecri?
Codecri? Codecri.
Okay, Codecri is the right name. Thank you. So they decided to publish several books on this issue. And our dear Muniz Sodré invited me to write a text on samba at the time. And it was the time when I began studying Brazilian culture by way of samba. So I wrote Samba na Realidade. It is a title to be written rather than heard because it shows what Noel Rosa had said. Samba in reality. It doesn't come from the hills or the city. So samba in reality was a complaint, so to speak, about what was going on with me in the Acadêmicos do Salgueiro Samba School, because I was being discriminated against in the samba school. When I asked for tickets, there was a reaction because they thought, at least that was the way I interpreted what happened. They thought I wanted to join the composer group in the samba school, not because of my merits as a composer, because nobody knew, not even I knew I was a good composer. So they thought I was trying to join I was already in the samba school, but I was trying to participate according to the great change going on at the time, moving from what was spontaneous to what was produced. So it was a very unpleasant situation. And when Muniz and the publishers asked me if I would like to write something about samba, I said, this is the time to do it. So I wrote this booklet called Samba in Reality. It's a small book. It didn't have much repercussion, but it was my debut, indeed. I had problems with this debut, and last year, when I was invited again to participate in a book on Acadêmico do Salgueiro Samba School, I wrote the opposite. I perceived and confessed that everything I had written at the time, when I moved away from Salgueiro, it was because I missed this participation. Because it was because of a heartbreak. So Salgueiro and Vila Isabel, it's the same commissioner. And in Vila, you proposed amazing titles for plots. I wrote 2 plots for Vila Isabel. And nothing happened. So much so that when you read the names of people who wrote plots that year, myself, Sonia, my late wife, who helped me a lot for 2 years, and our name is not there. Our name is not there. It is on the list of the Carnival experts. There was a thesis regarding the anteriority of the participation of foreign navigators in the discovery of Brazil. It was an interesting thesis that brings to Brazil the arrival of black African navigators. It is a hypothesis, but it's quite feasible. It's called the Vila Vê o Ovo. And to conclude, the last participation I had at Vila, I created a title of a later plot. My pleasure It's very long. It is Vila declaring itself Isabel. My pleasure, Isabel Rosa da Silva, but you can call me just Vila. So, as you speak about this plot you proposed to Vila, and that today they would call the first decolonial plot in the samba school history, because that's where you propose a reading about the arrival to America related to Africa. It's the opportunity to speak about this. You do the samba, and then you start writing a few precious books, non-fiction books, related to your dive into the African history. Books that are references. A reference book for us to understand Bantu culture at a time when nobody spoke about Bantu culture. You propose this reflection, a reflection that is fundamental. I think your work is the most powerful work we have in Brazil to break the connection of African history and Brazilian African history only related to slavery. You propose a different dimension. So I would like you to speak about this. After the first book, I think it's great for you to say, you admit that it was just heartbreak. You just launched a beautiful book about Salgueiro with Leonardo Bruno. And I would like to elaborate on this. Your reflection about the history, not only of African Brazil, but the history of Africa, an Africa that comes before the Portuguese and that is in your reflection for decades. How did it happen? How did Bantus and Malays arrive in your production on African Brazil and Africa? I had a commitment to my family, to my ethnicity, that wasn't called like that at the time. I just felt like it. Something was telling me this is the right way to go. This is the right thing to do. So I was interested in doing it. I became aware that I would lend myself to discussing this by reading a lot on it and writing about what I understood from what I read. And so I started doing it. So I went to bookshops, old bookshops. The decolonization of Africa was allowing for very interesting material to arrive at Brazilian bookshops about African traditions, about African history. So I started reading and writing, and I had the perception that a very important way of absorbing this knowledge was a dictionary. I think the dictionary is fundamental. With a good dictionary, you can party. So I became a dictionary writer. And there is also a funny story about this. In this journey, it was a story that was published on a big newspaper from São Paulo. They wrote a story about my work, and the title was The Heterodox Dictionary Man. So I was wondering, what does heterodox mean? I looked it up, and it means you're not an orthodox. That's the meaning. So you have in front of you a heterodox dictionary writer. All right, Nei. There is an interesting detail about this. Your arrival to fiction. I remember a time when I was talking to our dear friend and my dear Professor Joel Rufino dos Santos. I was telling Neizinho, please allow me to tell this story. It's irresistible. Joel was such an extraordinary figure, a great professor, Joel Rufino dos Santos. I saw this myself. Joel was very well humored, and Joel liked to arrive at tables with unknown people and say that he was the author of Nei's samba. I was at Nova Capella restaurant and I saw Joel say, Nei is great, I like him very much. He was fundamental at the time of dictatorship because I could not sign my own sambas, so I wrote the sambas and I sent them to Nei, and he would sign them. And he said he wrote Lady Liberty, Senhora Liberdade. He said he was the author of the samba, but I thank Nei for accepting this story. Once they asked me if it was true, and on behalf of our friendship, I said, yes, it is true. So Joel wrote a preface to one of your books in which he says the following: when I grow up, I want to be like Nei Lopes. It was a joke because Joel was very short and he admired you deeply. And once we were talking and he would say that he thought you were the most relevant person because of your position to bring an African Brazil. There was not Brazil linked to the history of slavery, but Brazil that was civilized by Africa, civilized in the African philosophy, spiritualities, technologies, cosmogonies, and everything else, that you were fundamental in this respect. And then you moved to fiction. And it's a fiction that is somehow committed to this kind of thinking, with novels that I consider fundamental, including for those who want to understand about the memory of samba, of the suburbs, the construction of being a black man in Brazil. So I would like to ask you to speak about this transition to fiction. You started as an essayist, as an author of nonfiction, a deep researcher on these issues, and then at a certain point you moved to fiction in its different forms, short stories, novels. How did it happen? How did fiction arrive in your life? Well, I took on a commitment to my ancestrality, so to speak. Another word that is highly punished nowadays. To show this, to show that behind the poverty, the difficulties, there is a Brazil that owes a lot to Africanity. So I wondered, how am I going to show this? This is what I do to this day. In everything I've written so far, I believe that 99% is related to what we're speaking about here. So I felt I had to do it. And somebody could tell me, well, you want to be a Lima Barreto. No, that's not my intention. In my scholarly tradition. I had never heard about Lima Barreto. At my time, we didn't study him at school. Only later in life did I learn about him, about this man with his ideas, the way he died. And I said, no, we have to move forward, and that's the way I'll do it. The problems of the favelas in Rio, the samba school, this is going to feed me, and this has been feeding me to this day. So I did not prepare for it. I did not program it. It's something I feel, it's something I live, something I took part of. Not as fervently as before, but every Sunday, when I got my entrance to the composer group, every Sunday I would leave home, I would go to Salgueiro to participate in the meeting every Sunday morning. And there are very interesting stories that happened in those meetings in the composer group. So there was a meeting going on a certain day, and one of the composers, I won't give his name now, well, the group's president was complaining the composers were not present. He said, we need composers to sing and so on and so forth. And one of the composers said, Mr. President, excuse me, I'm not present because I'm doing some works at home. And he pointed at his house next to the place. I'm doing some construction work and I have to supervise it. And someone else raised his hand and said, excuse me, I would like to tell you that in your construction, you were putting too much sand and little stone. So they started discussing this. And I said, what am I doing here? I was in a meeting of a group of composers, and they were discussing the construction materials, the fundamentals of the house. Isn't it very interesting?
So then, this made me stop and think about these things, these issues. This is a completely different world. It's something completely different. You know, it's not what I was used to have in my household. It was different. My father worked in construction. He worked in construction. So he had, hard hand labor. And he loved to say, he was honored to say that he participated in the construction of the current Avenida Rio Branco. It was called Central Avenue in the past, and he was there laying the foundations, and he was very proud of that. But it's different, This is something different. And I say, wow, this is such an experience. This is an experience I have and that I have acquired, and I've been working, and it has an important meaning. So this is it. I guess I started really living, truly living, and this at a time when I became interested in samba. I was a bit, turned down. My family didn't like that very much, and not only my family was black, but I felt a bit discouraged. But they had some kind of prejudice in understanding what happened in the actual communities, the true black communities. So my mother said, well, that environment is not good for you. Those are bad influence. So I heard this later in life, also from Candeia. Can you imagine the great leader of samba, Candeia, a master of samba? His father was also one of the directors of the Portela Samba School, but he didn't want his son to go to Portela because he said, that's not a good environment for you. So you had all these contradictions in your life. And it's important to have this experience. And at given time, I understood that I had to include these contradictions inside or within things I did. So nothing was planned, nothing was programmed. Things happened. So this is such a joy to be here talking about these things. This is the fruit of something, the result of something that I wasn't looking for any. I wasn't seeking these things. And at the same time, with a work that is a reference in everything today, if you are like if you, as a history professor, you go to study the Praça 11, and you will certainly take a deep dive in your work. You have to think of Praça 11, and you will talk about this. Not many people know that Praça 11 was the heart of Africa in Rio de Janeiro, which at the same time had a Jewish, and there was a carnival that would we would sing samba in Yiddish. So you bring all these things. So a question A, so in this process, so you're talking about your family and all these contradictions with the black family, not wanting you to come closer to the black culture because they consider it's not a good environment for you. How about spirituality? This whole idea of things that have to do with spirituality, Africa, the Orishas, the Umbanda, your ancestors, spiritual value. How do you deal with this, and how? Because you said that you felt a bit detached from your family. So how does this work with your family? How does this work? It's interesting the way you question. I'd like to highlight that musicality in my family was a natural thing in my family. My mother used to say that her father played the guitar very well and also played other instruments. And my uncles, her brothers, 3 brothers, were also amateur musicians. So it's something that ran in the family. And this passed through generation for the family that she constituted with my father. Everybody was just sitting around and playing something. I never developed, actually, this talent, this part. I would rather draw. I love drawing. And this is something from my grandfather, who we recently discovered was also a painter. And I don't even know how to say. Could you repeat the question? The spirituality, the orishas, the temples. Oh, this is extreme. I'm going to take off my hat here. Sorry. If you want some water, we have it here. This was an interesting thing. The sentence my mother used to say, well, we have them over there and we stay in our place here. Also Candeia, the separation. But my mother, my mother's brothers, my uncles, had an involvement in this traditional religion. And my mother would have a so-called preta velha, priestesses, Maria Comba, and she was felt in my house like someone from the family. She was like a relative to us. I love my little stories, to tell little stories. These are stories that are true and interesting. I would cut my hair, like all of us at the time, not leaving a little, toupee or something right in front. And then Pelé took over this way of our hair. It was Pelé that decided to put it. It was like maybe like Nat King Cole also, I will remember. So yeah, I had a little tuft here on top of my head, and then I would shave in the back. And I was at home. And then I'm, playing, lie under the trees, and all of a sudden, something fell on my head. Maybe it was a little insect or something. And it hurt. It hurt so bad. And I was crying. And said, "What's happened? What's going on? What's going on? Oh my God, it was an insect. And so she put some medication and said, "No, it's still hurting, it's still hurting." I would cry. I said, call the Preta Velha, call the priestesses." And then she invited Vovó Maria Kombi. She invoked Maria Kombi, and it was natural, and it passed. And this was what we did naturally at home. So this closeness to this kind of religious or spirituality. But what I did later was to try to understand the reason behind all this. And then, of course, I was talking about the group that came from Bahia. And I tried to deepen my understanding, to truly understand what it meant, what is an Orisha. And so I just took a deep dive, and I'm very pleased with the result of this knowledge for understanding all these different reasons. These are reasons that each one should bring within. And not having any kind of prevention against anything. Each person should have their own beliefs, that whatever fits you. There's no one religion better than the next. That doesn't exist. There is no possibility of enriching yourself just because of your religion. Some people think that they're going to become wealthy because of a religion, but that doesn't happen. That doesn't exist. And this is where true knowledge, practical knowledge, comes from, like philosophy supporting you to move forward. This is what I see. This is what I think. So this happened with my family. Today, I guess, the generations who came after, my nephews and nieces, each person has their own understanding, faith. Each one has a different religious practice. But at that time, it was something that was even hidden. It had to be secretive. But at the same time it was secretive, it was our practice, because my mother was able to help people, to pray for people. You get, some type of leaf and you do some type of enchantment. You know better than I do. But tell me, Nei, because we are reaching the end of our chit-chat here, of a conversation. You continue a very productive person. You are now launching the Dictionary of Human Rights and Other Matters. This is your most recent book, and you continue to produce. We're talking about autobiography. You never stop. You study. And Nei is a person that, well, you wake up super early. You still, yes, you wake up with the early birds. You're an early bird. So you are a person who's very productive, and you're here, you're doing this, you're doing that. So tell me, Nei, is there any project in your future? So besides your autobiography, I know that you do more than one thing. You multitask. I decided to, as I said, take a deep dive again on of different religions, spirituality in Afro-America. I guess we have a lot to learn through this apparent confusion we have between the Caribbean and more specifically Haiti. What is voodoo? Is it really everything that Hollywood teaches us? The whole witchcraft, voodoo kind of thing. There's whole political support in terms of burning and doing away with everything that is the Haitian religion. And everything is something that really worries me. So this is a way for us to put things in their right place. You know? Dot the I's, cross the T's. There's no good religion, there's no bad religion, there's no... If it is a religion, if it is a faith, it can't be anti-human. Many people say that. When we see that there's this whole political process behind with underlying interests, political interest, financial interest, trying to work behind this, we need to improve our knowledge on all these issues. This is what we have to do. And this is the main obstacle for us to reach in the best possible way, to reach peace, democracy, the true democracy, to do away with all prejudice, with all these things that really bother us, truly bother us, our life in this moment, not only in Brazil, but in the world. So this is where my desire of taking this deep dive in the sea of faith in the Afro-America, from the United States with its history, all its technological advances, but behind everything there is this spiritual work or task which is deeply beautiful, safe, without all the prejudgments done according to certain lines of thought or religious faith, in terms of religious procedure or process. So that's it. It's yet another contribution that I thought I could give to be able to perform this. This is something I've been doing and thinking about for some time. I have lots of notes. I have many things that are objectively, small drafts. And I guess it is more than time that I do something about it. I have to conclude this work. I hope to conclude it until, next year. And of course, we're talking about, we are in the home of, we're here in the publishing house that was interested in my project. So that's it. That's what I want to do. I don't believe that anything more interesting than that will appear in my life. Because this is where you find, when you study the Americas, you find all the good things, all the bad things of the world. It's from the Brazilian standpoint, Brazilians who wish to get to know the Americas under this gaze have more possibilities of understanding and growing and broadening their understanding of the world, and growing the sense of brotherhood of the Caribbean all the way up to wherever. Now, questions from the audience. We are here in the last 15 minutes of our conversation. There's an observation. Harry Belafonte. Oh, there's an observation of the singer was Harry Belafonte. Yeah, you're right, with a little tuft on top of his head. You're right. At the time, it was our high school, but more towards exact sciences. It was called Científico in Brazil. And I went to study, from Irajá, I went to Santa Cruz to study. And the only nickname I had in my life, or my sort of a pen name I had, would be Harry Belafonte. But Belafonte was big, and he was built tall. And you know that Nei Conceição, a great player from the soccer team Botafogo, he said when he was little, he had an issue that was that since his name was very short, Nei, You can't, have a nickname for a Nei because it's just too short, unless it's Neizinho short. Yes, I was born already with a nickname. But this whole thing of nickname, allow me, please. Our dear Jicro, who already passed, Jicro used to sign his CDs saying, and you're going to autograph your books here, and Nei Lopes will autograph his work. And Jicro tells a story that he was signing a book or CDs in the Bar do Chico at Professor Gabi's in Tijuca, where he lived. And this really big, strong guy came in and said, "Your friend," and he said, "Wellington." And Jacro looked at him and said, "Wellington, Wellington. Wellington is tough. Do you have a nickname?" And he said, "Schwarzenegger." And Jacro, "Well, please, how do you spell Wellington?" But Nei, anyways, a couple of questions. You already talked about this, actually, but this is the question. Yesterday, we heard here during one of the programs here at Flip about the natural wonders of Brazil, and as the Brazil brand, so to speak. However, nothing about our African roots that are unique to us. So this is a question from Ricardo. Cosmogony, philosophy, and reinventions of Brazil. And then, and samba and this. And what do you think about this? What could be done for the African features in its broadness and power to be seen as something that is also a Brazilian brand, becomes a defining brand of Brazil? Can they free us from a certain eternal condition as a colony?
Eu acho que sim.
Yeah, I think so. Because we keep complaining about everything written in English. Pet shops, for example, my pet. I don't like it. Pet shops. This is colonization. Black clothes, the fashion of wearing black clothes. I made a samba recently saying nobody wears anything except black clothes. The other day, I went to a shop. I wanted to buy a white jacket. So the seller came close to me. He showed me a jacket. I said, "I want a white jacket." And he said, "Why white? It can become dirty. And what if I tell you I like to be dirty?" So everybody is doing this, and people like to do the same. This is colonization. I have no doubt about it. So to reach this plenitude that our friend is asking about, it's about decolonizing. I think that's the answer. Decolonizing, but it's hard indeed. There are many interests involved. Now the next question is, you said you lived the era of samba, the 60s. Samba has been transforming itself. But what would you like? I see you as someone of the present. You interact with the present, with your time. But what would you like to recover from the past regarding the culture of samba? I think the samba culture should decolonize, should detach itself from carnival. I couldn't agree more. Because carnival is one thing and samba is a different thing. Until the 1960s, it's a strong landmark about this. Samba schools had a life you can't imagine. It was throughout the year. There were parties, the gafieira samba. There was a story the other day about gafieira samba, someone teaching what it was. But it's different. Gafieira samba is very specific. It's a kind of dance, very specific. There is somewhat of tango in gafieira. And in the past, in samba schools, this was included. Also in contests, for example, the Samba Citizen Contest. What is the Samba Citizen? It's the kind of guy who knew everything about samba. He could play several instruments, he could dance, he could compose. He was fluent in speaking, so he was the Samba Citizen who was chosen every year. Picnics. Now, restricting all this to a samba parade, it's not enough. And a little while ago, people would go to a samba parade to dance, not to be seen by others. That's another issue. But what can you do about it? You write about picnics, the picnics. Yes, picnics. Picnics were about bringing people together, being together, living together, living together. So what is missing nowadays, in my modest opinion, in my modest 83 years of age, what is missing is living together, interacting more, doing together, cooperating. This is missing. In short, today, I think for us to conclude this session, samba schools would parade because they existed, but today they only exist because they parade. It's a complete inversion. So we're reaching the end, and I would like to conclude by telling Nei something I've never said before, and I'd like to tell you as well. You mentioned Lima Barreto. Lima Barreto was a writer who said he wished he could one day write the history of black men in Brazil. Machado de Assis, in Memorial de Iris, in this book, he said someone should write about the stories and the history of suburbs in Rio de Janeiro. If I had the gift of finding today, of meeting today, Lima Barreto and Machado de Assis, I would tell them, Nei Lopes did just that you said. Thank you very much. It's a lot of responsibility, but it's true.
Tenho impressa no meu rosto e no peito o lado oposto ao direito uma saudade. Que saudade, sensação de na verdade não ter sido